Evening and welcome once again to Gaming Under the Influence. I'm Mike here with Alex, coming to you from GreenDragonCVR in Woodbridge, Ontario to talk about video games.
Oh yeah.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm playing a little bit of Liza P the past couple of weeks.
Yes.
We briefly touched on it in our last video, but it's a lot more to say today.
You know, in the name of one of our more recent videos, it's exceeding expectations. You remember that one? Yeah,
it is exceeding expectations.
Yeah.
It's a year for that, isn't it?
Actually, you're right. Yeah, it's kind of the theme of this year.
It is the theme of this year. That's right. That's a good way to put it. But yeah, this game, you know, like you had mentioned earlier, we were anticipating just a AA Souls-like, kind of based on...
Yeah, I thought it'd be more run-of-the-mill, like I would gloss over it, not quite like love it, and be like, yeah, good, you know, like always good to see a Souls-like no matter how it ends up, right? It's glad that
I try to play all of them when they come out.
Right?
It's interesting to dabble in at least the pure Souls-likes without the easy modes. Those I kind of put on the back burner.
Star Wars example and whatever.
I'll try it out eventually, but I always try and play the pure Souls-likes when they come out. Code Vein, the Surge, this one, you know.
This one's one
Neo
of the
and
most purest
but it definitely
ones,
is,
right?
Yeah, like you said, my expectations are exceeded because I was anticipating, you know, something in the AA range based on a silly intellectual property that I'm not interested in at all, right? Like, I even had heard before launch from people who tried the demo that I trust that this is an excellent game and to try it out, but my expectations and my excitement were tempered by, you know,
sometimes
a Pinocchio Souls-like.
Sometimes we need to overcome our own inner, you know, like it doesn't matter what people were saying, but we were gonna jump into it eventually, and even, you know, me, I finally jumped in like this
much like Control, though, wouldn't you say? Like, we just didn't know what to expect. Like, how do you convey what this is to somebody in an elevator pitch? It's impossible.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But
you have to play and experience it, really.
Yeah, like both in terms of how they use the, I guess you can call it an intellectual property, an old ass novel by somebody whose copyright is probably expired.
Oh, yeah, a long time ago.
How they use that in a totally unexpected and interesting way. It becomes more about the notion of a simulacra, like something, you know, pretending at humanity, right?
Yeah.
Than it is about Pinocchio the puppet, who, by the way, you are not Pinocchio, which is a big misconception that I myself perpetuated, I think, in our last video.
Yeah, from, you know, the little bit that I played, I assumed that as well.
But I mean, everybody, even if you read reviews, like most, you know, and it's very, like, it's not like they openly correct you on that, right? But you're not Pinocchio, you're Geppetto's son Carlo, so in that respect it does directly appropriate the plot of the novel.
Right.
But, it's really cool. Like, I guess we can just touch on that briefly, but it's about this city called Krat where this inventor Geppetto finds this stuff like ergo, which is pretty much like the blood from Bloodborne, some alien, I think it literally falls from space.
Kind
it's
of
like
resource, right?
Something
like,
from a meteorite that contains the intelligence of this like one-winged angel, the people who find it say, and they worship it on a mountain and stuff, and they start to use it to animate puppets,
right?
You know, and animated puppets become part of the life of this city, Krat, and they're the military and the police, and they do the work, and you know, one is in each household and stuff. But
everything's hunky dory.
Yeah, everything's going well, and even when you talk to the I don't know, pretty much the firekeeper Analogate in this game, who helps you level up. She's got a blue dress on there, and she can talk to the ergo, she says. She's like, Krat was a city of joy and light, and it was just this awesome place. And you find stories about how children would play with the puppets who actually have a form of intelligence. And, you know, it's crazy. Then all of a sudden, just like in Bloodborne, there's this calamity where the puppets all go mad, and people start getting this disease where they turn into monsters, and tentacles pop out of their heads, and
thus
that's where the game picks up. And you know, though it doesn't tell you explicitly much about it, you're Geppetto's son, something of his essence or his mind, like stuffed into a puppet. You know, you're not Pinocchio. That's just like I think it's explicitly referenced in like a book you find on a shelf in the main hub area, that there's this fable about Pinocchio in the in-game world, but you're not Pinocchio. You're just you're Carlo in a puppet, right? Yeah, so
it's quite interesting, and it really it definitely evokes, like, aside from the gameplay and the Souls, you know, it evokes Bloodborne so much.
Oh,
if you like Bloodborne, you'll feel like setting wise right at home,
both in terms of the art direction and this like theme of like humanity's encounter with the big other, you know, like with the alien or the supernatural, right? Like the themes going on definitely ape Bloodborne, and also just the general like vibe of the game, the sounds, the you know, the sights there, all that. They definitely understand like the Souls-like theme, you know, like we talked about how Armored Core even like exemplifies the Souls-like theme of like humanity's encounter with like the transcendental or like the other, and you know, the response to that people can choose and your role in it, and that's all here too, right? Like, that's what the ergo is, and like, you know, as you progress through the game, I guess I'm not going to be afraid of positing some spoilers, like you know, you see like the alien influence start to manifest in people, and they transform into monstrous shapes like the beasts in Bloodborne, right?
Exactly.
Tentacles come out of their minds, and like, you know, you find out this alchemist is trying to use this stuff to become a god, and that's the whole.
Naturally.
It's just a pure pure Miyazaki plot, 100 million%, right?
They know their source material, and they're doing it well.
Yeah. The humanity trying to misappropriate godhood and like the monstrous consequences of that. You know?
Right.
And then at the end, you have some choice on how to negotiate this tension yourself, like a Miyazaki. Like it's all very much
like an Armored Core from Fromsoft, all their games, all the Souls games, pretty much the same stuff going on.
And I guess, you know, so far we've been talking about how it resembles these games in a good way. And honestly, I'd say it's the first true peer of the Miyazaki Souls games.
Yeah, would you?
It's not like an inferior clone.
That?
I'm definitely comfortable saying like this.
That's pretty bold.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It's not like Neo's fun and arcadey and stuff, but it's not the same.
Yeah, see, that's like more inspired. This is really heavily.
This is a Souls game. It's a peer of the Souls games.
Yeah, stuff like this. You look at Souls and almost say like, it's a genre, and they nailed it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's a thing.
Yeah.
Rather than it's kind of loosely inspired by the gameplay of Souls. Like this
very
is
much
like
a pure Souls game,
right?
And it's not AA. It's a AAA game, and it's interesting that the developer who made this, they went from making just online live service games to this. They wanted to flesh out their portfolio. They got some people who love Souls games, and they got them on board making this. And
probably the best thing to come out of all
of it. It's like the anti-Western trajectory, right? Like single-player studio going to make a live service. There you go for making live service.
Seriously, oh my God, that's so true. Everything we're hearing out of Sony right now, way off topic, but is bad doom and gloom, because like they're trying to make like The Last of Us multiplayer live service games. Then you're looking at a company here was like, we made some live service game. Hey, let's make a Souls game because we got some really passionate people want to do this. They like it, right?
The demo was a good move, as with Final Fantasy.
True.
Very good move.
Yeah, that's true.
Convince people of the quality of the work because you're an unknown studio making an unknown IP,
that was probably a smart move from them, and even that we glossed over like idiots.
We're idiots,
frankly.
But a lot of people were like like a lot of our people who come here, they played it. They said it was very good. So
great.
That definitely influenced me to pick it up the moment I got it. Right. I do want to move on though and talk about what makes it exceptional and compared to the Souls games. And there's a consensus. You can go on YouTube or Reddit and you can find a lot of people making the case that this is harder than the Miyazaki Souls games. And I definitely agree with that. 100%. It is harder in very many different ways. I think that's what sets it apart. But before I get into what I mean by that, we can just talk about how exactly it's harder. And in the first place, it's harder because, you know, at the raw mechanical level, the parry, a core element of the game, is more difficult to pull off. And this is because the window is much smaller. The frames during which it's effective are much smaller.
Yeah, you have to be very precise to get a perfect block.
Much smaller.
You can still block attacks and take a little bit of damage, right? But to get the perfect parry, the perfect block, you have to be very, very precise.
That's right. You do have to be very precise.
There's a small window there.
Yeah, the window is very small. Also, unlike Sekiro, where you can cancel your attacks at least before the animation is fully or halfway performed, here there's no attack canceling, no animation canceling. So once you start an attack, you can't dodge or parry until the attack animation is completed. On top of that, the wind-up, and by that I mean the time between when you press the button and between when the character pulls his weapon up to effectuate the parry, that's much tighter than in the other games too. So the rhythm is more condensed. You really have to be on point with it. You have you can't in your head get into the rhythm as easily. You know, you can't be like boom, boom, counting it out, right? It's much more reactive and intuitive, I guess. You really have to internalize it. And in the last place, the most difficult thing of all is the fact that every boss has like monster combos, like 7-8 hit combos in super quick succession that you have to parry with that ultra tight, you know, response. And it totally negates the regain mechanic that they have implemented here, which you just mentioned, because, you know, there is this mechanic, but you can only regain the health if you don't immediately get hit before it regains, right? So when they have these 8-hit combos, it's
you get hit, and each chunk takes away that amount that you're allowed to regenerate anyway. So you get screwed.
So
you quickly fall behind, basically.
It's much harder because the enemies all have this like final boss tier like combo, at least one of them. Most of them have multiple that you have to learn. You can't react
pretty much.
Sorry, what I didn't mention is there's delays too on all of the multi-hit combos. The combos are not only huge and full of multiple hits, but each hit has a delay meant to screw you. You know what I mean? Meant to totally confuse you. And like they bring up their weapon and you parry and they hold it there and you're like, ah!
I noticed on the first boss he had a weird timing thing where he kind of smacked the ground with like that mace thing he was holding, and like it didn't look like an attack, but every time it hit me and I was like, what am I doing? Like why am I standing there? But
they all have weird like, delays in their attacks.
Weird,
They're all meant to screw with you. You can't just respond, because when you first look at it, there's no way for you to know when the attack's gonna come, right? The guy's just holding his weapon there and you're like,
and they change between phases. Like it's so mixed up.
That's right.
It really does feel like,
and as I just said, right,
weird.
Like there's that rhythm between the input and when the guy actually raises his parry, and you do have to hit the input slightly before the attack still. Not only is that time tighter than in a game like Sekiro, you have less of an opportunity to do so, but the attacks have these delays. So not only is it, it's a tighter parry, but you don't know when to use it.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, in Sekiro, if you don't nail the perfect parry, you just take stamina damage. Where in this game, you take damage.
Too,
you actually take out damage. So it's
and that's not so bad against a normal enemy that's going to hit you once. But if you're hitting the first,
but doing it in a boss,
if you miss the first hit in an 8-hit combo, that health is gone. That it's gone, right? Like it doesn't matter.
That's true. You could get into a boss fight and lose within the first couple of seconds.
Of course. Go watch my footage. Oh man,
like, you feel like you almost instinctively want to like hit start and go to restart, but like this game doesn't have that option. That's just like,
go watch my footage from last night. I spent 2 hours trying to beat this eldest of the Black Rabbit Brotherhood boss, and that happened to me many times. I can't even tell you how many attempts I put into.
You screwed up basically within the first like
in 2 seconds,
5-10 seconds.
Like you missed the first block, and that's it. It's over. It's done.
Crap.
Because so. That's sorry. Continue.
The neat thing I was gonna say was just that all your souls actually drop like in front of the boss door. So if you wanted to, you could pick them up and bounce, not go in there.
There's many quality of life things I think we should mention, but we'll
probably
try
a whole other thing.
We'll keep those for a separate thing at the end, because there's lots to talk about there too. But at this raw mechanical level, that's why it's much harder, I think, because the parry, which is a core element of the game, it's much smaller window. The input delay is much tighter, and all of the enemies you got to parry, they have these multi-hit, like super delayed combos. So it's very difficult to parry. Every boss too. And
the game kind of pushes you in the direction of playing it like Sekiro. Because it wants you to parry so that you can stagger the boss, right?
Yeah, you do want to parry. Like you have a dodge, and you have more success with the dodge has a more moderate window of success. You can more successfully dodge than you can parry. But when you dodge, you miss out on the super armor damage, I guess you would call it. Because when you parry a blow successfully, a perfect parry, it'll do super armor damage to the boss. He's got like Insecure on a break meter. You just don't see it, right?
It's like a stamina gauge.
But every time you perfectly block his attacks, as well as do a heavy attack to him, even a light attack probably does a bit too. You're doing damage to him that will eventually break him, right? So if you're dodging every attack, you're gonna have to go in and do that damage to him, right?
You're not breaking.
It's just the game, it's telling you like you. And the other thing is, in the Souls games, you can dodge every attack. The parry's kind of situational, but you can dodge every single attack in Elden Ring, so I don't even bother parrying the last boss. No point.
Fair enough.
You don't do enough. Here, you can't dodge the red charged up attacks, the force attacks, whatever they're called. The parry is the only thing.
Run away.
Yeah, you can run away.
Get away.
But some of them track you. It's not possible, right?
Typically, you can't flat out dodge it, and it forces you again. You have to parry.
You have to learn the perfect parry. I think those are the moments when it's telling you have to learn the perfect parry, right? It's the only thing you can rely on 100% of the time.
That's true. That's true.
So what does this leave us with? All right, like at this mechanical level, it's much harder. Every single boss, I'm putting it to you, demands this like. It demands what the final boss in Sekiro or Elden Ring would demand of you. These multi-hit combos, super delayed, super complex. Every single boss is like that. So you're in this situation where, I never hit a wall like that in Elden Ring. Even the very first wall I hit, that Margit boss.
Oh yeah.
I played him in one night. It took me a couple of hours, but I did finish it in one night. I got hung up at different points, but not until the very end with the Beast Cleric there did I seriously hit a wall where I couldn't progress, exactly, where I got hung up for more than a day or two on something, right? I really got hung up there, and I had to go rethink my build. I put the game down for a couple of weeks. It really took me like a week of intense learning to get through that, and I refused to I'm going to summon and,
Yeah, you want to beat it.
You want to play it
one-on-one,
right?
Kind of.
Here, same thing, right? But man, the early bosses, I'm still in the first half of the game, pretty much, right? I'm just now, I think, halfway through it. All of the bosses demand the same commitment to get through that the very last one does in Sekiro. And
oh boy,
I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? And it takes all of this commitment. They feel even more difficult than Sekiro in terms of how the moment-to-moment gameplay is. I think at this point we'll put some footage on the screen of the final boss of Sekiro versus this mid-game boss from Lies of P, and you can see for yourself what I mean. And the net effect is that it's like the experience versus playing other Souls games is almost as different as other Souls games from God of War or something like this, right?
Yeah,
a character action game.
Quite a difference.
It's kind of drastically different experience.
Like playing the bosses in Demon Souls and then jumping forward into another, FromSoft Souls game. Just like the advances of whatever they're doing with the
there is
boss
something
design,
there,
AI design. It feels more modern in a sense where that's why it's so difficult.
I think it is that. Yes, the mechanics are tightened up in that way, but I think even more radically. No FromSoft game demands that much of you. A lot of the bosses are throwaway, right? You plug through them.
Yeah, some weird puzzle bosses and stuff.
They're there for you to. They don't have what the final boss has often, right?
True.
Most of the time, no. Yeah. So I think in that respect, it's totally different than the Souls games, right? What it demands of you before the final elements is.
It's almost like
it's consistent,
keeping
right?
it's keeping you on your toes the whole time. I don't know what the final boss is like, but I can't even imagine it's going to be insane, right?
Yeah, I've heard the final boss isn't the hardest.
No,
that one slightly before is one of the harder ones. So I guess we'll see. But then again, some people have said that Archbishop one is one of the hardest. So, and that this Black Rabbit Brotherhood is one of the hardest, depending on how the combos, how you are at pairing the combos. So I guess it depends, but. The sense that I get is this is the reason why it's so much harder than the Souls games. Not only are the moment-to-moment mechanics more difficult to master and employ, but what it expects from you is what a FromSoft game would expect from you right at the end. It expects this from you consistently.
Yeah, like you hit a wall at the last boss and you struggle and it takes you days. Some people give up entirely. Some people take some weeks. Some people don't even get there, like me, to be honest.
Every boss is built like a final game, like an end game FromSoft boss. It feels like to me, anyways. Having played
that's
all
impressive.
of these 3D Souls-likes, this is
it's very impressive from essentially an unknown studio as far as we are concerned. I don't care if they made 5, 10, 100 live service games. We've never played any of them, so we've never heard of NeoWiz, and now it looks like they deserve to be recognized by us, and they deserve some recognition, right? So that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's the hardest Souls game, and I think that's easy for me to say. And what this makes possible is for them to do a lot of the, we talk about FromSoft excelling at environmental storytelling. And, kind of non-explicit ways of conveying information to you, like with item descriptions and stuff you see in the environment. This focus on these bosses and how much time you're going to spend, just engaging with them, it allows these guys to use that as an element in their world building, right? Not only do the bosses say stuff as you fight them that will convey something about the world, but their visual details and the way that they move and act is also a chief element of this environmental world building, I guess you could say, this environmental storytelling in this game. I think you get this intimate knowledge of the characters by spending so much time just looking at them and dodging their attacks and trying to react to them, right? It really is a cool way to engage with the world that I don't think you get the opportunity to do in other Souls-likes, where the first 3/4 of the bosses, you fight them 1 or 2 times and they're gone. You don't really remember them as much. They don't make an impact on you, right?
There's no dialogue in it.
Yeah. Some of them reused, right?
True.
Not in situationally relevant ways, right?
Yeah.
In that respect, man, it takes something that Souls games are good at, which is, indirect storytelling, using the environment or other elements of the world instead of cinematics, and it plops all that down into the boss arenas and the boss fights themselves.
Exactly.
The focus is chiefly on the boss battles and on combat, which in other FromSoft games it's more diluted, and not that that's a bad thing. They're more expansive in their scope, but this is a combat-focused Souls-like.
Yeah, really at the core, I would say it's very much so.
There are those vistas. You do get to see a lot of the city and explore it, and there is some environmental storytelling like you would find in Fromsoft, and some items with descriptions.
Yeah, it has all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
there's all of these things, but the focus is shifted heavily onto the bosses to achieve the same effect.
Yeah,
conveying elements of the lore.
I like that. That's interesting that they've gone in that sort of direction there.
Yeah, you'll see what I mean if you spend 4 hours fighting that archbishop.
Yeah, I guess you're unravel the story through what's happening with the bosses and what is being presented to you by fighting these bosses.
The puppet ones even have the puppet bosses even have like garbled dialogue you don't immediately understand.
I noticed
you
that.
can unlock the subtitles. Yeah, and there's like lore bits that you find out in the world that tell you more about them as characters. It's very cool.
Hold up, because I remember doing the first boss. I remember those like jumbled what's called like subtitles popping up, but does that mean, is that supposed to be, because obviously I haven't unlocked anything to
New Game Plus probably
that's got to be a New Game Plus thing, right? So maybe it's continuing the trend of strongly encouraging like multiple playthroughs by giving you or just giving you more to sort of unlock by playing through it again rather than just doing it for the fun.
I haven't heard about any secret bosses in New Game Plus or anything, but there is that at least incentive to.
That's cool. Because I guess doing the first boss you have no idea, right? And then you slowly unlock it throughout the game, but then coming back again you get to see more of the dialogue from the bosses and unravel more of that, right?
Which is the main element. So in all these ways I think it's a peer of the Fromsoft games. It's not better than them.
Yeah.
Definitely not, in terms of its world building, but it is a peer of them, I think.
Yeah.
Almost an equal of them, right? Like,
awesome. That's great to hear,
its lore and the world that they've built is just as engaging and, focused on like the nature of reality and what it means to be a human being and how to engage with the radically and metaphysically other, right? Like it's got those themes and it conveys them just as masterfully with environmental and indirect storytelling, but a lot of that is shifted onto the boss battles. So.
Incredible, really.
The hardest Souls game and one of the best. I really love it, man.
Bold words.
Yeah. I play a lot of these games and this is excellent. Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. I'm not just excited about it in the way that I would be like something that I'm going to put away soon after. I think that this is amongst the best in this genre for sure. Yeah, easily.
Yeah, you know what? I'm eager to play through more of it, of course, because I admit I have only gone through the first couple hours to the first boss, but
you'll dig it.
It's got enough there to keep me going. I definitely want to play more, and the more you tell me about it, the more it sounds like a hit. And it's I think, like we said, not something we had really intended on gushing over. Essentially, we just kind of thought it would be same, like a whatever, but.
Just a word of advice, though, if you feel like you're stuck and it's getting frustrating, it's best to just play something else for a little.
Yeah, that's probably
I've found so many times, like after an hour or two of hitting my head against something, I just go put it down. I play like Valheim or
a lot of
Cyberpunk
that is
for a
just
bit,
clearing your head and then coming back and some of the muscle memory kind of like sets in. And you really you just feel more loose and comfy and like you kind of jump in there and you're like you get angst and like nervous when you keep doing it over and over, and sometimes it'll work and you'll just eventually get through a boss,
but it's not an optimal scenario.
Sometimes you just gotta
Another thing that I saw somebody recommend online, which I thought was cool, was to just go back to the early areas if you're stuck and just go through the mobs that you've already beaten and just see how far you've come from when you started, and make yourself feeling more comfortable with the mechanics
maybe grab some more levels and stuff.
Because you can feel really beaten down there for a while. You're like, I can't do it.
It's like grinding levels, man. That's like a tale as old as video games.
Early now,
it's a little bit of a boost.
I haven't found a good grinding spot yet, actually. I'm still too early for that. But later, from what I understand, it does become possible. But it doesn't really help that much either, from what I hear.
Like any Souls game, it's not going to turn you into, you still have to learn the game.
Yeah, you have to build your character well, too.
It'll supplement and help, but that's basically it, right?
You have to understand the builds, too, though. That's a subject for another day, though. Those quality of life improvements, though, there is a bunch of little stuff like that, like the fact that your souls drop outside the boss room if you want to take them back, right? The fact that you can teleport from anywhere without losing your souls right from the start of the game.
Yeah, that's true. You have the item that lets you just free go. Yeah, I got lost one time, in the first area there, and I booted back, and then when I came out, I was like, oh, I just came out from right here. Like, I figured it out instantly, but like it was like I had a mental roadblock. I had to go back and figure it out. Yeah. And that item, I guess it helps because you don't have to go pick up your Soulslike or whatever, your ergo, but
I think there's free respecking too. There's that whole thing where you experiment with the weapons and the handles, where you give different scaling to different configurations of like fire, acid, whatever damage. So it's got a lot of little things that really put it in another class compared to non-From Souls-like games.
Yeah, like the little busty ball things that, you know, you don't really have to deal with. Like, it's nice. Yeah, there's one weird thing where your weapon durability can sometimes just run out. Like, you have to maintain your weapon durability to strengthen it, like during a boss fight. But also at the same time, now I fix the weapon fully before you go into the boss fight. You can do it with an item, unlimited like uses, right?
Yeah,
it's easy.
Just
you
have to remember to sustain
do it. Like,
but the cool thing is later you can add something to the grindstone where every time you sharpen it, it adds a elemental buff to your sword.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it incentivizes you to remembering that as part of the loop. It's a really cool little thing, and also it feels badass. Like, you knock a boss down, you just have 2 seconds, and your guy's just like sharpening his sword. Yeah.
Sparks flying. You're like, I'm so cool.
And then you die. It looks so good. It plays so good. The themes and the world building are excellent, and it's the hardest Souls-like. Easy for me to say, the hardest. You'll see what I mean. Maybe we could leave it there, eh?
Yeah, there's plenty to unravel, but for now, I guess we'll cut it off there and save some for the next one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy Lies of P, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.